series of Horizon contains a wide variety of reports, starting with a program about an extraordinary new technique for controlling brain disorders. Another film investigates the world's most intelligent computers, and Death of a Star tells the story of a recently discovered supernova, the first to be seen since 1604. Horizon also looks at the history of the building of the Panama Canal, one of the world's most important waterways and one of the biggest and most difficult projects of all time. The current series of 40 minutes continues into the new year with Convictions, a film about three small-time criminals trapped in their claustrophobic lives. Later in the series, there's a remarkable story about an attempt to rid Switzerland of its gypsies by snatching children from their parents. And Thames Waller is a film which follows David Trigg's journey to India to act as a consultant on a massive scheme to clean up the Ganges. Discoveries Underwater is an 8-program series which looks at excavations, from the first amateur probings to the highly professional expeditions of today. The series reveals the everyday lives of people throughout history, with the full excitement of marine archaeology, where danger and adventure accompany every story. Eyes on the Prize is a new series which traces the history of American civil rights from 1954 to 1965.
In 1954, the Supreme Court said black children would go to school with white. The South said never.
The War in Korea with Max Hastings tells the story of the 20th century's forgotten war.
The imminent prospect of the Seoul Olympic Games being held here has diminished for a space the war of words between North and South. But this country, owned by a single people for so many centuries, seems doomed to permanent division by a political struggle that began just over 40 years ago. On June the 25th, 1950, without warning, the North Koreans launched an invasion of the South across the 38th parallel, aimed to unite the country once more under Kim Il-sung. The Communists' highly trained and well-equipped divisions smashed through Syngman Rhee's defenses almost effortlessly.
And from Calgary in Canada, the Winter Olympics. Desmond Lynam and Steve Ryder introduce all the action and excitement, covered exclusively on BBC Television.
And now on BBC1, a first showing on British television for our film, The Bounty. Our movie classic later tonight at 11:40 stars John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara in The Quiet Man, John Ford's exuberant comedy about an American, Wayne, who returns to his native Galway where he just might pick himself a nice, quiet Irish bride. That's here on 1 at 11:40 tonight. Over on BBC2 in a couple of minutes, their film, The Flamingo Kid, is a warm-hearted American comedy about a young man coming to terms with his family and himself.
Tomorrow, BBC1 takes off into '88 with a new series of Bergerac and an assignment to protect the mother of a supergrass from an underworld kidnap plot.
Why the hell does a villain like Reggie Betts want to drag his mother over to live with him? He needs muscle. I got round the East End that Reggie wasn't just out, but living the life of Riley at Her Majesty's expense and grassing like a lawnmower. Suddenly half the villains in London were out shopping for someone near and dear to him to get out of it.
Reggie, £500,000 worth of stones can buy a lot of choice and security. Me and Tony be happy to handle negotiations for you.
Why, Mummy, what big eyes you've got.
Listen, Inspector, I didn't ask to come over to this dump, and nothing I've seen makes me want to stay.
Look, Lola, be reasonable. A bit of shopping's one thing, but night clubbing with Charlie Hungerford's something else altogether.
Impossible.
I haven't even started yet.
Bergerac returns tomorrow at 8:15 in the new season on BBC1.
In about 20 minutes, there's comedy in Alan Ayckbourn's play Way Upstream, about a riverboat holiday which turns into a power struggle as craft and crew sail for Armageddon Bridge. That's after the news here on BBC One with Richard Whitmore at 15 minutes to 10.
The government stops the Observer publishing from the memoirs of Anthony Cavendish, a former MI6 officer. After 30 years, the full story of Britain's worst nuclear accident. Millions watch on television as East greets West on New Year's Day. And up and away, the little bastard takes flight from the attention of the Twitchers. The government has obtained an injunction preventing the Observer from publishing material from the memoirs of a former MI6 officer, Anthony Cavendish, who sent 500 copies of his book, Inside Intelligence, to friends as Christmas presents. Yesterday, he gave an undertaking to the government that he wouldn't publish it more widely. But government sources said it was feared that the Observer might publish regardless, since it had refused to give an undertaking that it wouldn't. For more details, Michael Sullivan.
The injunction was granted today by a judge sitting in Winchester, but the news came from Whitehall that the Treasury solicitor had obtained the order forbidding the Observer from disclosing or publishing any information supplied to it by Anthony Cavendish in breach of the duty of confidence to the Crown. Both the Observer and Whitehall agree that attempts had first been made to obtain the newspaper's assurance that it wouldn't publish such material. The editor, Mr. Donald Trelford, refused the first written request as a matter of principle, he said. The government had no evidence of intention to publish anything. Today, he said, there was another attempt to obtain an informal indication that he would not publish. He refused that and telephoned the judge to ask for the matter to be postponed until tomorrow. The judge said that could be put to the Treasury solicitor, but, said Mr. Trelford, the next thing he heard was that the injunction had been granted.
I do find it quite outrageous that the government should rush around in a frenzy on public holidays, clearly stung by the spycatcher verdict. And I think it's significant, too, that the first news of this injunction didn't emanate from a press association in Winchester, where you'd expect it to, but from Downing Street itself, and that the only people briefing on it tonight are in Downing Street. Seems to me that the government really is stung by the spycatcher verdict and is determined somehow to reverse it, but we're going to fight them.
Tonight, Downing Street said that the injunction against the Observer applied to any other newspaper, but that because the Observer's rival, the Sunday Times, had also declined to give assurances that it would not publish material supplied by Mr. Cavendish, an injunction against that newspaper would be sought tomorrow.
A highly critical report on Britain's worst nuclear accident has just been made public after 30 years. It includes some scathing comments on the 1957 Windscale fire, which was suppressed at the time by the Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan. He was afraid they'd undermine public confidence in nuclear power and damage our relations with the United States. The fire at Windscale in Cumbria, now known as Sellafield, was in the number 1 reactor, where nuclear fuel was turned into plutonium for Britain's atom bombs. Huge fans blew cold air over the reactor to cool it. It became hot and went up the chimneys into the atmosphere. When the fire took hold, radioactivity was blown up the chimney. Fortunately, filters at the top caught much of it and prevented a bigger disaster.
On the Sellafield skyline, 2 chimneys still stack.